It's in that year or two when I moved to London where I kind of learned the foundation of what later became my career as a music producer, and eventually led to me also composing and doing what I do now. Probably childhood would be the place where it started. I mean, both my parents were really into music, and they were very supportive of me from childhood onwards to play music, to play in bands. I remember going to piano lessons with my dad. My mom's family is very musical, so I think I got some from that too. And I was always involved with music, always loved music, always interested in the latest music that was on the radio, trying to play things. So I think I picked up my interest in music and playing instruments from a young age, but obviously I never really thought that it's something I could do professionally until much later on, until after college actually. But yeah, where it started is probably childhood. Now, if you go to like Instagram or Facebook, you'll see a lot of producers and people, very young, as young as 15, 16, making beats, putting them out there. But fortunately for me, when I started, that wasn't a thing yet. And so I think I had less people to compare myself to. So I never really felt the age as a thing. And I never really felt that I hadn't studied it as being like a limiting factor, because this is an industry and this is a business where you learn things through experience and by doing it. And when I moved to London, I actually didn't know anything about recording music, about writing music, about doing anything. I just knew it was something I wanted to do. And through a series of, fortunate incidences, I ended up meeting someone who is still my writing partner until this day. We work a lot together. And he actually had about 10 years more experience than me at that time. And it was through working with him and through other people that I kind of learned the basics of recording and production and songwriting. And that's what allowed me to develop into a producer later on. I didn't go to school for it, but I don't think that you can really go to school for a lot of the aspects that come with this career. But you do have to learn from someone. And the two main ways you learn is from watching someone else do it, someone teaching you, and you also practicing and doing it yourself. So the basics of recording and arrangement, production, I learned from Dan, who is still someone I work with very closely. But from there on, you start to do it yourself and you start to practice it. And then over the years, you develop your own skill set, your own sound, and you just evolve and develop it further. But obviously, to get started, the initial plug or the initial phase, it's always good to work with someone. And I was very fortunate to meet some incredible people early on, incredible studios where I was able to work, and people who had very specific skill sets who I was able to learn from in those days. It very much depends on what it is that I'm working on. Just to give you a bit of an overview, like my background, I started off as a music producer, and in those days it was very much about artists coming in, working with their specific songs in order to kind of create music that was something that they wanted to put out. So you kind of, as a producer, you put a little bit of I wouldn't say that it's my creative process, but I'm a part of someone else's creative process and help facilitate them into doing that. But I think that process where the end product is not yours, but you still give yourself to it, is something that I was later able to apply to my work in composing music for ads and films, where again, it's not music that's being necessarily released by me as a standalone piece. It's something that I do in aid of whatever the film is or the end product. So if a director comes to me with a short film or a film that they need music of a particular direction of music for, or if I'm doing it for an ad, it's that same process of being able to interpret what the end goal is of what you're working on. So the creative process, just to get back to your question, it really, really varies. But I think, if I had to really simplify it, I think it would be understanding what the goal is of what I'm working on, and then finding the correct inspiration for that. I still continue to kind of learn new things every week.
I think
so it's an ongoing process.
I think all kinds of art is always like an ongoing process, and there's always something new to learn. And I can say no one's ever really the expert of everything, as we are all like learners. of our very art.
Absolutely, yeah. That's I think one of the definitions of being an artist, that you're always exploring new things and always
Yeah.
learning new things and trying new things. It's
And
that kind of
growing, yeah.
curiosity that allows you to grow and express yourself artistically. When writing music and when composing music, there have been times where it takes a while before the initial idea comes to me. And that can be due to a lack of inspiration, or most often it's because there's too many other things going on in my life and I have too many kind of things pushing me in different directions. So I don't actually have the time to just sit and focus on writing. But when that moment comes, and for me, usually that happens in the mornings. First thing in the morning is when I do my best work, because I guess the day hasn't really started yet and there haven't been too many distractions. And it's in that moment, in that kind of mind space, when the brain is kind of just waking up, that the best creative ideas for me come. So I try to start any project first thing in the morning on a particular day, just to get the idea out. And once the idea is out, then usually I can continue working on it any time of the day, because the actual part that you need the inspiration for has already been achieved. So that's how I kind of try to work around writer's block. I think having a deadline is actually quite good in many cases. You know, it forces you to structure your work in a certain way so that you, I wouldn't say force the creative moments or the inspiration, but that you prime yourself to be open to it when you need it. So I think even if you're writing music for yourself, I always advise people to set deadlines anyway, just because it helps you stay structured and get things done. And it's a good tool to use later on as well when you're doing it for a client who's waiting for you and probably doesn't care too much whether or not you've had a moment of inspiration. It's I'm just one small piece of a very large puzzle when it comes to the production industry and people making these things. So I got to make sure that I get my part done on time.
Yeah.
I think that's what people care about the most.